The next time you look in the mirror, think about this. In many ways, you're more microbe than human. There are 10 times more cells from microorganisms, bacteria, viruses, fungi, than human cells in and on our bodies. And our genes are outnumbered 100 to 1 by microbial genes. Scientists even have a name for all these microbial genes, the human microbiome. Now, this might make a lot of people rush for the hand sanitizer. But it turns out most of these microorganisms aren't bad. Germs that will make us sick, most are good. And without these good microbes, our bodies don't seem to do as well. We don't seem to be as healthy, and we actually might get sick more often. So one question is, where do our microbiomes come from in the first place? Well, like a lot of things, it starts with our mothers. As the infant passes through the birth canal, it gets coated with microbes from the mom. These microbes may kind of seed the baby with just the right mix. Combined with bacteria in breast milk and other microbes we encounter early on, they seem to slowly take shape in our first few years of life. The overall mix of our microbes becomes very personal, sort of like a fingerprint or maybe a blood type. But our microbes tend to resemble those of our parents and siblings, and may stay with us for much of our lives. They may also be doing all sorts of things, such as educating our immune cells, like this one, teaching them the difference between things they should fight off, bad bugs that might make us sick, and things that aren't a threat, like our good microbes. When we're adults, microbes become our first line of defense, fighting off germs that try to invade our bodies, protecting their turf while protecting our health. Scientists have discovered they can even spew out their own antibiotics. The types of microbes in your body vary depending on exactly where they live, like different ecosystems in nature. There are wet places like our mouths, noses, and armpits, oily places like our scalps and backs, and dry places like our forearms. Different species of microbes have adapted to each of these habitats. The biggest, most important microbial habitat seems to be in the gut. It's the most complex, the most diverse, and everything microbes are doing everywhere else in our bodies, fighting off infections, revving up and dampening down our immune systems, signaling cells, that's all happening in the gut in spades. They even seem to help regulate our metabolisms, how much energy we burn, and how much fat we store. So if it's not functioning properly for some reason, because of what we eat, antibiotics we take, that may actually lead to all kinds of diseases. Diseases like colon cancer, colitis, maybe even diabetes and obesity. Some scientists think one reason a lot of diseases are increasing is because we've lost key gut microbes. Our microbiomes look far less diverse compared to those of people in less developed countries and earlier generations. And remember how we get our microbiomes in the first place? From our mothers when we're born and from breast milk? Well, some scientists think that too many babies aren't getting that because of all the C-sections and not enough breastfeeding, plus all the antibiotics kids get these days and our obsession with cleanliness. All this may help explain why problems like asthma and allergies have been soaring. Maybe because our microbiomes never taught our immune systems how to work the right way. Maybe swallowing good microbes, probiotics, could prevent and treat some diseases. So could taking prebiotics, essentially food that good microbes love. End our story with a reminder. This research is really new. We still have a lot to learn about what many of our microbes are really doing. But scientists say that it's getting clearer and clearer that the tiny organisms all over our bodies are essential to our health and happiness.
So that was pretty cute, wasn't it? But it really explains what is going on in our culture, you know, the germophobia. Well, and did you hear him say that we have 10 times more cells from the microbes in and on our body than we do have actual structural body cells? That's amazing. You think like, I'm a universe for those critters or something. Yeah.
You mean it's bad to take a bath?
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, I can relate very much to what they were saying because taking all those antibiotics is what sent me down the bad path.
Yeah.
Because before then I had a perfectly fine digestive tract. So just here's the summary about cultured or fermented foods, which those terms are kind of equal. Cultured foods even better than taking probiotic supplements. And here's the recommendation. Eat cultured food and or drink daily 2 to 3 times per day. But when people are rebuilding their gastrointestinal tracts, you have to start with small amounts and increase gradually to prevent die-off reactions. So start with 1 teaspoon, increase to 2 as tolerated, and gradually your goal is to have 1/4 to 1/2 cup of cultured vegetables with 1 meal a day, and when you can handle that, then 2 meals a day, and then 3 meals a day. And these recommendations came from Dr. Campbell McBride, who's done all the work on refurbishing the gut. She said people with gut problems need to keep eating or drinking these amounts for at least 2.5 years. Let me get the slideshow up here.
What are some examples of cultured foods?
Sauerkraut, kimchi, you can culture any, I don't like kimchi, they make it too hot. You can culture any kind of vegetables, and if you go on the web and look for cultured food, there are tons of videos and recipes available. But, so we're going to go through some of the cultured food. Whether they're vegetables or fermented drinks, they have a different profile of organisms in them and a different action in the gut. So that's why they recommend eating a variety of cultured foods. So yogurt's the one we know the most about, and we know it's a bacterial culture of lactobacilli. Now the kombucha, the fermented tea, you can actually use green tea for kombucha too if you want to. But it's the SCOBY, the disc that forms on top, that stands for symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast. And so that's what it is. It grows certain bacteria and yeast. And I think you'll probably have a different spectrum of organisms depending on how long you ferment it. They can switch from some forms to another the longer it ferments.
I missed the night that you made the kombucha. And where do you get the SCOBY?
There's some in the refrigerator downstairs if you want one. Yeah, I just got it from a friend.
Oh, really?
You know.
So it's like the old friendship bread where you have to
Yes.
give a partner.
Yes. And the recipe's in the back. It's real easy to make. Now I've never tried natto. Has anybody ever tried that? I think it's a Japanese fermentation of soybeans, and the organism in there is Bacillus subtilis, which they find stimulates the healthy immune system. But I think any of these cultured products probably stimulate a healthy immune system. From that little film, it looks like the healthy organisms in the gut train our immune system to respond properly. Kefir is another symbiotic relationship of bacteria and yeast. Saccharomyces boulardii is one of the beneficial yeasts in it, which you don't get in yogurt. You can ferment grains too. Now in your manual at the end I put the recipe in for cabbage rejuvelat, and instead of turning cabbage into sauerkraut, you kind of do, it's kind of the same process, but you just blend up your cabbage till it's really fine. I do it in a food processor, and then you put pure water on it, and you just let it sit out and ferment. And usually it'll ferment all right even without a starter. And I haven't done it in a long time, but you need to have a organic cabbage that's been harvested pretty recently. Otherwise, I think you can take some of the whey off yogurt and put it in there to get the starter going too. And it will actually create effervescence too. And then the point of it is to drink the juice. So one of the recommendations was that if people are just getting started out of their, especially when their guts are sensitive to the fiber, don't handle it very well, eating drinking cabbage Repopulate, you drain off the liquid and drink that and throw the rest away, can be beneficial. Now the wheat Repopulate, you make the same way. You just take the whole grain wheat, not crushed up or anything, and put it in water and let it sit. But you can find recipes for that on the internet too. There's a little bit more than that to it. See, I'm wondering if we did wheat Repopulate, if that would refurbish our enzymes and our probiotics that help us digest wheat, and then we could handle that. It's something I haven't tried yet on myself.
The only thing I remember is seeing people make sauerkraut when I was a child.
Oh, yeah.
And they had a stone crock, and they just shredded that cabbage and then put a wooden block on it, a rock on the top.
Probably added some salt, I suspect.
I don't think they did,
Okay.
but it
Yeah.
started fermenting.
Yeah. Well, see, in days when they didn't have refrigeration, they fermented their vegetables to preserve them. And so pickles started out as the same fermentation process. But now you don't get the good bacteria and enzymes for pickles because they do it with vinegar and heat treatment. So you can ferment coconut water. It has a lot of good electrolytes in it, as well as the probiotics. And then cultured meat breaks down the meat. It's pre-digested, so it's easier to assimilate. If you ever get brave enough to do that, I'll have to find out how to why. Well, you guys didn't ferment. It didn't culture your meat. You just added good, tasty stuff in it.
The meat?
The fish, the raw fish you were talking about.
Yeah, normally, they salted it because of that lack of refrigeration. So that's why a lot of the meats were salted.
So then, could they keep them a while that way or not?
Yeah, for a time.
Not too long.
Yeah.
Because mostly they dried their meat, made jerky out of it in the old days when they didn't have refrigeration and stuff, the natives. Yeah. So here's the cool thing, those organisms in the culture are detoxifiers too. They pull out heavy metals and chemicals. They stimulate the immune system. They help restore proper digestion and assimilation. And they heal the enterocytes, the cells in the lining of the intestine. So we have a lot of fun things to try, don't we? We need to rebuild our systems. There's some resources for you. Okay. So we're going to do just a few minutes of something fun, and then I have a surprise for you.